Hi, my name is Gilbert Bates and I'm coming to you from Australia. The reason I'm doing this video, followed by many others, is that I am passionate about telling the world what I have discovered about the human brain. As a matter of fact, I'm so passionate about it that I have written a book about it. The book is called The Dysfunctional Brain, One Cause, One Cure. Now, the one cause, one cure thing is quite a big claim in this day and age where we have psychology and psychiatry researching what may be the causes, and probably hundreds of different causes they're coming up with, and also thousands of different cures or lots of different ways of trying to treat the human brain and why it's dysfunctioning. Things like depression and anxiety that are ruining so many human lives. So I want to use this diagram to give some idea of what this is, an introductory in this video, be followed by further videos to explain it more fully. But just for now, I want to explain it like this. Psychiatry and psychology especially, deal with the cognitive brain only. So that when you go to university, you use your intellectual brain, which is here in the prefrontal cortex, to study what's wrong with the human condition, and then you use your intellect to try and come up with cures, and they're just mostly theories and things that psychologists come up with that aren't tending to be very effective, and they don't understand why. And they take that as our most important level of our brain, and then our emotions underneath that can sometimes be regarded as a problem, because we get depression and we get anxiety, and they ruin what should be a perfectly good life. So I call that the two-level down paradigm, because the intellect is more powerful than the emotions, and so that's why we have cognitive behaviour therapies, where the cognition is used to try and alter our behaviour. Now, the thing that I've discovered about the human brain is that it actually has three levels of functioning. We have the intellect, which is fair enough, but that only sits on top of the rest of the brain, is represented here by an iceberg. That's the sea level. The tip of the iceberg is the 1/9 of the brain, and underneath that is the rest of it. That we've all heard about that. But most of our brain lies. Most of the functioning of our brain lies within the subconscious. So, and the next level down from the intellect are the feelings, and then we have the sensations. Now, the sensations are the most powerful in the way I understand the brain. Now, the sensations are the most powerful, and if you look at represent that areas, that's one area. That would be 3 areas of the brain, and that represents 5 areas. So if you combine the sensations and feelings, you've got 8/9 of the brain controlling the cognitive brain, and that's a completely different understanding than what we have now, where we think the cognition can override what's coming up from below. No, it's the other way around. The sensations are the most powerful part of the brain. They give rise to feelings, and then the feelings give rise to what we think and how we act. And that's a very important thing to understand, that we say things and we act, and we don't realise that the underlying force for what we're doing actually come from our brain sensations, and those sensations come from the way we've experienced life, how we have experienced our lives, especially in the earliest days in our childhood. Did we experience love, or did we experience a lot of trauma? Were we abandoned? Were we subjected to physical abuse? All that sort of stuff. That's all imprinted in our brain, and then that works upward to drive the cognitions. So cognitive behaviours therapy is not very efficient in trying to understand or to fix the mental health problems at this stage, because the sensations are such a powerful force. And if we want to change our views on mental health and do something for those suffering in the community, we need to understand this area of our brain, understand what it does, and then take steps to bring that to the fore and be an important part of how we operate as humans in this world. That will take a major change, but hopefully these videos will help a lot in that process. Hi people, I'm back from a short break just to get my thoughts together, but I'm back here to tell you how I come to find out about the 3 levels of brain function. At age 46 I had a depressive breakdown. I ended up spending a couple of nights in hospital, and the doctor told me that I really should see a psychiatrist. So that's what I did. When I saw the psychiatrist, he put me on medication, and then he told me that I'd probably have to be on that for the rest of my life. And I thought, well, that's not a cure at all. I don't want to live like this. The medication made me like a robot. It made me feel a little bit better in the sense that I didn't feel bad, but I couldn't feel anything at all. So it's like, well, you know, I don't want to put up with this. And the other thing is, he couldn't tell me what was going wrong with my brain. He couldn't explain to me why my brain was doing things that I couldn't control. So I stayed on the medication for a few months, and then I went to see a shaman on the spiritual side. So that, you know, the orthodox side couldn't help me, so I went to investigate the other side of healing, which is the natural therapies, spiritual type people. And they actually got me to cry, put me in a situation where I could at least cry. And that released enough pressure for me to eventually go off the tablets. I wasn't cured by any means, but at least I didn't have to take the medication. And so I started to explore the spiritual side of life a bit more fully, and then I decided to go and study natural therapies. But I realised that becoming a naturopath wasn't really going to cure what's wrong with my brain. But then while I studied naturopathy, I was still very interested in the brain, and I found a second-hand book in a library written by Arthur Youngoff and called The Primal Scream, and it described the 3 levels of brain function and how it was a cure for neurosis. Youngoff was derided because of that, because he said primal scream can cure all neuroses. It's like people just laughed at him. They didn't understand they just didn't understand what he'd discovered. So I decided I was going to go to America to have this therapy. It all made sense to me from what I'd been through. So what the therapy does, it starts off in the intellectual space, and then you go into feeling. You open the doorway into feeling, and then I use the house analogy a lot in my book, in that you've got you open the door from the intellect into what I call the feeling rooms. This is the feeling rooms, and then you go into the brainstem, or what I call the basement of the mind, and you've got to work down through the feelings. It's like a stairway in a house. You open the door into the feelings and then follow the stairway down. When you're up in this level, you can feel, but you can still talk a bit. As you work your way down over many sessions, you get into really deep feeling, and then you can't talk at all. And it's like that. You know, people will say, I was so frightened, or I was so scared, or you know, that I couldn't talk. Well, that's what it is. You cut off your intellect and you just go into deep feeling, and then you can't talk. And then I opened the door from feeling to sensations, and I still remember the time that I did that, where in one session I started to wriggle and squirm like a serpent, or a reptile. And the therapist said to me, just let yourself have that. So that's what I did. But when you open up into those spaces for the first time, it's a bit strange, and so you really can't sink into it as fully as what I can in the first time. But over time, you can gradually sink deeper and deeper into it, and you still continue on down the stairs, and you get right down low into the ugliness of the basement, and that's where my depression was. That down with primal pain. When we're children, we need to be loved, and if we don't get the love, it causes primal pain. It's commonly known as childhood trauma in this day and age, but it's really just the child not getting its needs met, and that causes primal pain, and that's what affects your intellect later on in life. So you have to go down here to get rid of your primal pain, you have to feel your feelings, or feel the pain that's down there. And my depression went. And so that's how I found out about the 3 levels. And it's not just me, every person that undergoes primal therapy will go through those 3 levels if they stay with it long enough. They will go through those 3 levels and they will understand that their brain has 3 levels and not just the 1 level. It's a wonderful thing. The 2 things I want to say about, or 3 things I want to say about primal therapy, and I just need to have a bit of a look at my notes. These things I uncovered. I wouldn't have said that I was an anxious person. I didn't have panic attacks and that sort of thing. But when I did primal therapy, I uncovered my anxiety because my father was a violent man, and so I lived most of my life in a terrified state, and I didn't realise any difference. I just thought that's how life was. But when I uncovered it in therapy and dealt with it, and I'm still dealing with it, like it gets here, right down here in the brain, in the brainstem. So I'm still dealing with it, but I've cleared out enough to it just changes so much in my life to be free and easy and not so afraid of everything. It's just wonderful. The other thing is that at least I know how the brain works. Remember that the psychiatrist couldn't tell me how the brain works? Well, I gained that knowledge through this, the 3 levels. And when I run my life now, I know whether I'm in the intellectual space, or whether I'm in the feeling space, or when I'm in the space of sensation, and that's a wonderful thing to achieve. I'm just so grateful for that. My mind's not in turmoil anymore, wondering what the hell's going on in my head. I understand what's going on, and if I have a trigger and I suffer a trigger, I know how to deal with it. I know to lay down and let myself go down there and feel whatever it is right down deep in my brain. The main thing that surprised me with undergoing primal therapy was that I always wondered about what love was. I lived in a marriage that I couldn't quite understand. I didn't know what love was, and I didn't think I was going to find the answer doing primal therapy. But when you get rid of your depression and your anxiety, the space is actually filled with love. Love started to come into my life. So the seat of love happens to be down here as well. But we can't feel that when there's a lot of primal pain there. We've got to get the primal pain out, and then love fills that space. And that's just a wonderful thing for me. Feeling the primal pain is bad enough, but I had trouble accepting love in too. That was a bit of a surprise to me. Wow, I can feel love. And it's like, it just changes my life so much. But it was hard to let the love in because it felt foreign to my body. My parents never loved me, so I didn't know what love was. I hadn't experienced it before. But now I can let love in. I can be more loving to the people around me, and when people are loving to me, I can let that love in and experience it without putting up my defences. And it's such a wonderful way to live my life. Now, I want to give you an example of the power of primal therapy, in that if you become a psychologist, like a PhD, get your PhD in psychology, takes 7 or 8 years, you still don't know the causes of depression, and so you don't understand what the cure is needed. And just last night I listened to a Jordan Peterson YouTube lecture where he admitted that there are there are 10 or a dozen different causes for primal therapy that they don't really quite understand. And I go, well, wait a bit, when you understand this situation in the brain, depression is just suppression of feeling from bad feelings that you have imprinted there from your childhood. So depression is just repressed feeling, and the cure is go down deep and release the pain. It's as simple as that. But of course they don't know it, because all their learning's up here in the intellectual space. Psychologists and psychiatrists of the future will need to undergo Janov primal therapy early in their teaching so that they understand this. Otherwise, they're just flailing around in the dark and not really getting anywhere. So this 3 levels up paradigm is going to change the outlook on mental health in quite radical ways. So anyhow, I was going to yes, just add to that the 6 or 7 years you take to get a PhD in psychology, 6 or 7 years. But when I went to do primal therapy, it just took me 12 months, or probably less than 12 months, to realise that depression is just repressed feeling, and the cure is to just release that pain. It's as simple as that. And here we are mucking around with hundreds of different causes and thousands of different cures, and it's just a simple thing. That's what I love about the 3 levels of consciousness. It's such a simple concept, and it's such a simple thing to understand. It's so powerful because you discover the seat of love. I just hope that with these videos I can help change the world by doing that. It's love, it's pure love that's going to change the world for the better. But we need a completely new paradigm, the 3 levels up paradigm, so that we understand what the power of love is.